Hilton, also the head of the hotel, and I'm quite aware that from, I think, 2014, you started a transformation program in that hotel, which I think has been completed now. How has that changed the dynamics in that specific company for you?
Let me say good morning, and thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Frank. Let me go straight to the question. What we actually set out to do in the Transcorp Hilton, which I consider the pride of Nigeria, the icon we have in the city of Abuja, was to transform the hotel truly into a world-class hotel. We don't benchmark ourselves with any hotel locally, and that transformation is not just about the physical infrastructure, but also the services, the quality of service delivery. And so we undertook a number of measures in terms of governance, processes, and we actually created a new vision for the team. And the buy-in and all of that is part of the reason you see us emerging the best business hotel in Africa consistently for 6 years, according to the World Travel Awards. Now, what did we do? Especially when it comes to the infrastructure, we took a deep measure to see where the market is headed, the technological advancement that we're having. You know, a lot of youngsters who get into the hotel, they're looking to do a lot of imaginative things, plug their own devices. You know, we have a USB at the bedside, and we reformed and remodeled the hotel to serve both the old, the new, the high class, and the low class. So the essence of that was to infuse a new 10 to 15-year life into the hotel, and I believe that has worked tremendously, because in the past, if you visited Abuja and you wondered which was the best hotel, there were some names that would come to your mind, but today I don't think that comparison is being made. So clearly, people have recognized the value and they applauded it. And so, for any reason, any of you, you've not visited Abuja in recent time, please go and see it for yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I'm sure there'll be one or two people here wanting to take that offer of invitation. But given the transformation that you did at the Hilton, how does that compare to your current role? I mean, trying to take Transcorp PLC to another level, I mean, in terms of power, of course, hospitality, some of the projects that you have. How does that compare?
So for me personally, I am thankful for the opportunity to, the few things I didn't talk about really when it comes to the hotel. We also set out to transform the hotel to be an entertainment hub for Abuja. I can tell you that Abuja was almost a zero live city in terms of weekends. I know a lot of my friends here, when they come into Abuja by Friday, they're all jetting out, because there's nothing to keep you behind in Abuja, but not anymore. So big events, big conferences, big entertainment, musical, comedy, all of that happening within the hotel. And that actually has transformed, and a lot of other properties within Abuja is they are copying some of these. So Abuja is changing for good. And what we're trying to do is to try and replicate this success across the entire group. And so in power business, for instance, we are one of the leading power generators. As a matter of fact, we can do far more than we're doing today, if not for the restrictions and limitations we find within the sector, mostly beyond our immediate control. There is so much political, technical, and commercial misalignments, and I can speak to this if time requires. And what we're trying to do is bring those successes we've achieved in other sectors into the power and eventually to oil and gas. And we are doing that not just through the various efforts that we're initiating as a company, as a group, but also advocacy that we're bringing to the entire subsector. We are leading the GENCO voice, both at the Board of Trustee level and the Chairman of GENCO level, and we are succeeding, but obviously there's a lot more to achieve as far as power is concerned. If you note, the issues around power are majorly around transmission and distribution. These are not the areas we play in yet, and at some point we may also start to look at what opportunities exist in those areas.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to come to that in detail because I have a question down there. I want to ask you, given your interest in the different sectors in the Nigerian economy, I'm sure you watch out for global developments that affect your business. Which are the critical ones?
There are several. Whether you like it or not, people are discussing the Wuhan coronavirus, and they think it's just for China or for Asia. We need to be very careful and mindful, and for us who operate in hospitality business, visitors come from every part of the world. I can tell you that if we're not careful, it will get into Nigeria, so beyond the Lassa fever that we're battling with. So basically, health is a major issue, and we are watching out for it. Security is another one. We know that there's no investment can thrive the way we want it to be unless we fix the safety of life and property. So clearly, that is another. And of course, the Gulf issue. Is that going to be a war in Iran? What's going on? How is the U.S. managing the tension? How are the countries within the Middle East? Of course, the impact on oil price is another. So all of these begin to affect and impact locally the market. And I can go on, including the positive sides, which include the Africa Free Trade Agreements on the positive side, and then other initiatives happening locally within the fiscal regime, the Finance Act Bill 2019, Finance Act 2019, to also the part that relates to PPP, where government is now looking to use tax credit to spur more development by the private sector. Also talk about there are other initiatives by government to help regenerate revenue and mobilize revenue for government. And so they are very critical it's important that we pay attention to this because directly and indirectly they impact on our businesses for good or for bad. And what we try to do as a group is use what I call scenario planning to deal with these issues and assume things can get worse, get better, or actually stay flat, and see what responses we have in each of the circumstances.
Okay, great. So, given the last aspects of the answer that you just gave, I assume that over the next few years, even over the next decade, your outlook is positive for the business and for Nigeria?
Okay, now I need to pause a bit, there's always this tension between the positive and negative representation of what happens in Nigeria. Now, quite frankly, there's a lot that we need to do to better the country, Nigeria. Let me speak to the business environment. I will speak to also the structural issues, and then I'll also speak to the confidence level. You know, when I got into this arena, I heard a lot of discussions around population and migration. And in fact, let me start with that. The truth is that the confidence level is very low. People will need to believe more in Nigeria. And when they do, you will see migration thin out. It's when there's lack of faith and trust, that's when people start to look out for opportunities elsewhere. And to achieve greater level of trust and confidence, government has a lot more to do. There's a lot we need to do, especially in now building the economic and business environment. Now, let me also then go to the business climate. I think that a lot of times when we speak to FDI, foreign direct investment, and sometimes I simply just laugh. There is no FDI without the local investors being comfortable in the business they're in. So we are the ones that will pull other. In fact, truth is that money goes to where money is comfortable. So it's only when we are making enormous progress, prosperity is around the corner, everybody's seeing it, and then the foreigners will begin to say, okay, what is going out there? Let me go and see, and let me go and invest. And so reality is that there's a lot more to be done. And I love what has happened with the Finance Act. In fact, the speed with which this act was passed into law, I am amazed. I didn't know something like that was possible. So it tells me that there's a lot more that can be achieved by this country if we are serious. So to the extent that I see some snapshots, some good signs, I am cautiously optimistic. But I can't tell you that we are where we should be. Otherwise, Nigerians will not be looking to go to Canada or wherever else that they want to go to. The confidence level must be boosted. And it goes beyond just doing some few things and, we usually say a business environment, the ease of doing business and all of that. But it's not enough. We need to government will need to actively engage positively the private sector. There's no economy without the private sector, and there's no private sector without the MSME, which the last audience spoke to. What I love about the Finance Act is the comprehensiveness of that act that cuts across all the 7 taxations we have, and how they touch on critical areas, especially MSME, and of course the insurance.
Thank you very much. One final question from me, then I will take the 3 questions that I have from social media. You started on power, discussion on power. I mean, you can't speak to Transcorp, and you know that you have to put on your agenda in the evening without asking questions about power. So, what is the problem? I mean, because some of us from outside, we just hear Genco, we hear Disco, we hear transmission, But what we know is we don't see light, What is the problem? Because after privatization, for people that have followed my own writings over time, I wrote extensively on privatization. And after privatization, I said, this is the best thing that has ever happened to Nigeria, But we didn't see the kind of outcomes that many other countries that followed the same process that they saw. What is the problem?
The problem is the same problem everywhere. It's always about implementation. Quite frankly, Nigeria took a massive step of unbundling NEPA and privatizing the Genco, generation and distribution. Unfortunately, the process has not yet been properly implemented and executed. And what we therefore see is humongous misalignments and dislocations across political, technical, and commercial. And in fact, the fact that it's only generation and distribution that is gone to the private sector hand, there's still that big elephant in the room, which is transmission. So today, I can tell you for a fact that generation is not our problem. The capacity is over 14,000 megawatts. And in fact, give me another 1 year, I will increase it by another 1,200. That's what Transcorp alone can generate. Our intention is to generate for 1 person out of every 4 Nigerians. And we can do it very easily. But the challenge is, I generate. First of all, I struggle with gas to get my feedstock to power the turbines. When I do so, I have my availability, and I'm told, no, you can only generate half of that, for instance, because the frequency issue on the grid, because the discos wanted the power wheeled somewhere, and they can only do it on this side where they don't need the power. because of inadequacy of transmission. Then, when the power is eventually wheeled, guess what? There's so much losses in between. And then when it gets to disco, their own set of problems start. There's no, meteorization properly done. And there's so much collection losses, and people are not even willing to pay for power. And eventually, the process is that I have availability of 100, for instance. I only generate 50. It's only 30 that's wheeled, and that 30, discos collect only 10. And that 10 is what feeds my 100. How is that possible? So there's misalignment across board. And then other initiatives, in fact, the same government, this part of government will have an interpretation on one policy issue, and this other part of government has a different interpretation on the same policy. There's no alignment politically. So there's so much, problem. And for me, it is simply in looking at each of these three areas, political, technical, and commercial, and begin to enshrine transparency and seamless integration across board, and we can get it right. It's not a magic. And there's a lot of effort being done right now, and I applaud very recent efforts being done, but still a lot more needs to be done, especially when it comes to transparency, accountability. What we actually advocate as Genco, not a lot, just to make sure that, for instance, the collection gets into the common pool, and when money comes in, it goes to the entire tiers. I, the generator, the transmission company, distribution, we know what's due to each and every one of us, and then distribute across board. And what that does is that we will begin to work together. When we know that our destinies are tied together, we'll begin to work together, integrate together, and with government doing the right things, remaining consistent, and also providing that needed support. So today, we are owed over 80 billion for power we've generated, and the same way for other Gencos. And guess what? Because these misalignments are happening, when government even finds the money, because when my contract is generate power and sell to government. So I honestly don't care what government does with the power. So I generate and send to them. All I care about, pay me what I've generated. It's simple. I'm not looking for any subsidy. I'm not looking for any support. Just pay me what you owe me, period. And that's all we're pushing for. And then for government, if you are eventually going to be in the middle and to push this power to the discos, then you better find a way to collect the money from the public. Otherwise, remove yourself from the in-between. Let me go direct to discos. Let them pay me for whatever I send to them. And I'm not looking for any subsidy. I'm not looking for any support. Just pay me what you owe me, period. And that's all we're pushing for. And then for government, if you are eventually going to be in the middle and to push this power to the discos, then you better find a way to collect the money from the public. Otherwise, remove yourself from the in-between. Let me go direct to discos. Let them pay me for whatever I send to them. And let's liberalize the market, simple, and remove any form of subsidy in the sector.
All right, thank you very much for that insight. So very quickly, from the social media, these are very, very simple questions. I'm sure you quickly run through them. The first one is that in what ways does Transcorp give back to the society?
In fact, the mantra of Transcorp is impacting lives. If just by what we stand for, what is Transcorp? Transnational Corporation of Nigeria PLC was set up to basically help to transform Nigeria. For me, there's no giving back bigger than that. That's why we are in sectors we're in. We carefully choose them, not because of money, because of their impact in the larger society. So hospitality is a game changer when it comes to employment. Just in hotel business alone, we employ over 1,400 people. And then when you go to the issue of power, there's no Nigeria without fixing power. So we chose power deliberately because we want Nigeria to be transformed.
Okay.
But beyond that, there are also a lot of other initiatives. On schools, we're part of an initiative to also keep promoting entrepreneurship within the wider group. There's several things we do to give back to the society. So we live to impact society.
Okay, thank you. From Twitter, someone asked, is Transcorp considering going into agriculture?
Of course. As a matter of fact, Transcorp was in agriculture. because of a number of issues, including security issues. Remember, we took over Benford plant in Makurdi, and the idea was to go for import substitution. You can't imagine that every single juice you drink in Nigeria, the concentrate is actually imported. So we thought, why would this be so? Why would you see citrus, oranges, mangoes, and co wasted away in different parts of Nigeria? So let's go and take over that plant and actually begin to produce concentrates locally. Trust me, with the myriad of issues, including insecurity, it became impossible to continue. So we exited, but we are looking for a very strategic way to get back, especially in what I consider processing, not just the primary areas of agriculture.
Thank you. This one will make you laugh, I hope. The person said, I'm from Anambra State, which is where you are from. And I recently read that you are considering going into politics. Is that true? I mean, I didn't read it, I'm just asking.
Well, we're here for
business.
For business. We're not here for politics, even though I did hear that most Nigerians now want to go into determined politics. So maybe I'm one of those Nigerians. So yes, I am considering going to politics. I'm consulting widely with the key stakeholders, and I'll make my statement public at the right time.
Okay, maybe when you finalize that, maybe you'll be looking for a PA. That's the one I would final question, and we'll leave this stage. What has been your biggest lessons, also from social media, biggest lessons and challenges in your career?
For me, I am thankful to God for the opportunities I've had in my entire life. I consider myself thoroughly blessed by God. And one of the things I hold dear is the value of excellence and the culture of continuous improvement. Basically, challenging the status quo, asking the right whys, and finding answers to those whys. Honestly, what I think is if we as a country can imbibe this culture, a culture that questions every status quo. How can things be better? There's no way, as we're here today, organizing this conference, the next time we organize the same conference, it must be better done. So what are the learning? How do we continuously improve? If we do that, honestly, Nigeria will not just be a wonderful place. We will help to redeem the narrative about a black man. If you ask me to, I don't have my phone, the manufacturers of the phones are back in the laboratory looking for better, quality, better design, better shape. Let's do that every time. When we're choosing, people that will lead us in politics, in governance, when we are running our businesses, when we're doing our personal stuff, let the culture of construction. That's for me is the greatest learning that I've had, and that's what's shaping my behavior and everything that I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, Valentine Ozigbo.
Thank you so very much.